I've seen lawyers get up at closing and just run through the facts, line them up, talk about complicated legal theories, and the jury doesn't connect. But I found that telling a story really, really does. And I would urge you to check with Keely Blanchard, check with some of the resources she has, and develop your ability to tell a story. Whatever you do, whether it's arguing a case to a jury, presenting a case to a judge, talking to an audience about some subject matter, building your practice by relating to clients, stories really sell. They sell you and they sell your side. Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles. The Free Lawyer Podcast is designed for the lawyer, entrepreneur, or professional who is in some way unfulfilled, stressed, or stuck, and is looking for something better. We will discuss various blocks that limit us from achieving the personal freedom that we all desire, but have not yet fully experienced. And we will give actionable steps to free yourself from them. Are you looking to achieve a new level of success? If so, this podcast is for you. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of The Free Lawyer. I'm Gary Miles, I'm your host, and I've been practicing law for 45 years. It'll be 46 years this November. And I'm passionate about helping you lawyers be as successful and free and fulfilled as you can. And that's the purpose of this podcast, help you lawyers find a way to greater peace, satisfaction, and happiness in your practice. And if this is your first time listening, thank you for joining me. And if you like what you hear, click the follow button so the episodes will drop to you on Mondays when I have my solo episode like today, and on Thursdays when I have my guest episode. I try to bring you some of the most informative, interesting, and exciting guests that I can, who can inform you about how to make your practice work better for you. For those of you who listen regularly, thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. And if you like what you hear, I'd love you to leave a rating and review of the podcast, because that would help it to be seen by more people. And that's what I'm passionate about. And many of you know I am a trial lawyer for many years, both personal injury cases, defamation cases, employment cases, etc. And I learned the art of storytelling and how we can more effectively convey our message by telling a story. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And it applies a lot to trial lawyers trying to convince a judge or a jury, but it also applies to others of us who are trying to market ourselves to a client, persuade the other side to settle a case. Anything that requires persuasion, storytelling can be a real asset. And, in the courtroom, in the negotiating room, where facts and evidence are so important, the transformative power of storytelling is really a game changer. Storytelling isn't just for novelists and filmmakers. It's a potent tool that captivates juries, persuades your judge, and will help you win your cases. See, it transforms dry legal arguments into engaging narratives. And you can make complex issues understandable, evoke empathy, and ultimately sway the decision your way. In today's episode, I'm going to dive into the art of storytelling, explore why it's essential, discuss how to craft compelling narratives, and give you practical techniques to make your case unforgettable. So let's begin with this question. Why is storytelling such a powerful tool for lawyers? See, it taps into the fundamental way that humans understand and relate to the world. It engages lawyers and judges by transforming complex legal issues into relatable, memorable, and compelling narratives. Here are the most important reasons why storytelling is so persuasive. The first is it engages and captivates the audience. Stories are so engaging. They capture the attention of the jury and keep the audience invested in the outcome. An engaged jury or judge or audience is much more likely to follow your arguments and to remember your key points. 2, storytelling simplifies complex information. We know how our cases can be so complex with technical details and nuanced arguments. And to a layperson, like on a jury, can be very confusing and hard to understand. But see, a well-crafted story can simplify these complexities. It can make them more accessible and understandable to your audience. By breaking down complex narratives into relatable narratives, you can ensure that your audience, whether it's a jury, judge, opposing counsel, someone listening to a presentation, will be able to follow your arguments and grasp the key points. 3, telling a story evokes an emotional response. Stories connect emotionally. They evoke empathy, anger, sadness, or joy. Emotional engagement will help focus your jury's attention. It can influence the jury or judge's perceptions and decisions, making them more likely to side with your client. 4, storytelling will help enhance memory retention. People remember stories better than lists of facts or a pile of arguments, because stories have a structure that our brains are required to recall. People are more likely to remember information presented in a story format compared to dry facts and figures. The critical elements of your case are more likely to stick with the jury and judge, and that will reinforce your arguments. 5, storytelling builds credibility and trust. A compelling story can humanize your client and present them as relatable and trustworthy and honest. And a well-crafted story that aligns with the evidence enhances your credibility as well. Connecting with the audience will improve your client's credibility and strengthen their position. 6, storytelling frames the legal argument. It allows you to frame the facts and evidence in a way that supports your legal argument. By controlling the narrative, you highlight the strengths of your case and you downplay the weaknesses. 7, storytelling encourages active listening. Stories are inherently exciting and engaging. They encourage the audience to listen more attentively. People are naturally more inclined to pay closer attention to stories than to facts or dry lists of testimony. Active listening increases the likelihood that the judge or jury will understand and be persuaded by your arguments. 8, storytelling demonstrates the human impact. Stories humanize the parties involved in a case by highlighting their personal experiences, their struggles, and their emotions. Legal cases aren't just about laws and regulations. They affect real people's lives. Lawyers and judges relate to and empathize with the characters in the story. And that makes the case more compelling and more authentic. Highlighting the human element through storytelling can emphasize the significance and urgency of your case, fostering a deeper connection with your audience. 9, storytelling fosters a logical flow. A well-structured story has a clear beginning, middle, and end, which helps you organize your presentation. A logical flow ensures your arguments are presented coherently and persuasively. And finally, and most importantly, storytelling differentiates your case. A compelling story will make your case stand out by capturing the attention of judges and juries, making them more likely to focus on and remembering your case. So many important points. Engaging and captivating the audience, simplifying that complicated case you have, evoking emotional responses in favor of your client from the jury, helping the jury to remember the most important facts, building credibility and trust, framing the legal argument in the way you want it to be framed, encouraging active listening, so the jury really pays attention. Demonstrating the human impact of what happened. Presenting a logical flow to the case and setting your case apart. By mastering the art of storytelling, you will be able to enhance your ability to persuade, engage, and to connect with your audience. And that will ultimately lead to more successful outcomes for you in the courtroom. Storytelling will make your arguments more compelling, more understandable, and memorable. Well, that's a lot of good reasons. So how do we do it? What are the most important techniques for compelling storytelling? These are some of the most important. The first is to know your audience. Tailor your story to the interests, values, and understanding of your audience, whether it's a jury, judge, or opposing counsel. Use language and examples that resonate with them and address any concerns or biases they may have. Obviously, you would tell your story of the same case differently to the jury in closing argument than you would to the judge in responding to a motion for judgment or to the opposing counsel at a mediation. 2, use a clear structure. Organize your story with a clear beginning, middle, and end, starting with an engaging introduction, building your case with relevant facts and evidence, and concluding with a strong, persuasive closing. 3, develop compelling characters, and this is really important. Humanize the parties involved in the case, creating empathy and connection. By describing your client's background, motivation, and emotions in a way that makes them relatable and sympathetic, you will enhance your client's credibility and strengthen their position. And this human element will make your case more compelling and more authentic. And the jury will resonate on a deeper level. 4, use descriptive language. Using descriptive details will create a mental image of events, settings, and emotions. And they will paint a vivid picture with your words to engage your audience's senses and imagination. 5, maintain authenticity. Be genuine and truthful in your storytelling. That builds trust and credibility. Don't exaggerate or manipulate. Stick to the facts while engagingly presenting them in a story format. 6, utilize repetition and reinforcement. Reiterate your critical points to ensure they're remembered and understood. Use repetition strategically throughout your narrative to reinforce essential facts and arguments. 7, show, don't just tell. Use evidence, exhibits, and demonstrations, pictures, to illustrate your points rather than just describing them. Tangible evidence like diagrams and pictures and videos can really make a difference. They support your story and they make it more convincing. 8, create suspense and curiosity. Build suspense and keep your audience curious about what happens next. Pace your story to reveal information gradually, keeping the audience engaged and eager to hear more. So try incorporating these techniques into your storytelling, knowing your audience, using a clear structure, an opening, a beginning, a middle, a closing, making your client compelling and relatable, using real descriptive language, being authentic, genuine, and honest, using repetition and reinforcement, using exhibits to fortify your story and create suspense and curiosity. When you incorporate those techniques into your storytelling, you will create a compelling narrative that captivates your audience, clarifies complicated legal issues, and persuades judges and juries to see the case from your perspective. So how do we create a compelling narrative? Structuring your legal story with clear, defined sections is really crucial to effectively engaging your audience and presenting a persuasive case. And a lot of what I'm going to share here came from Keely Blanchard of Law Story. She's truly an expert in the art of storytelling, and I highly recommend her. You want to check her out on LinkedIn. And she helps train lawyers to present their cases in court in a more compelling way. So I highly recommend her. And these are some of the concepts that she explains. Before you outline your narrative, consider these questions. Who are the possible villains in your case? Who violated a trust relationship with your client or with society? What trust relationships exist between the villain and your client or with society? And how did the villains betray those trust relationships? Those are the essence of the story. A villain who has violated trust relationship with your client or with society. And how did the villain betray those trust relationships? So you begin with setting up the story in a before section. That sets the stage by establishing the trust relationship between your client and the villain before the conflict actually arises. In other words, we set forth the relationship of trust between the villain and your client or society or the community. Begin immediately with the villain as the central figure. Describe the relationship of trust between the villain and your client or society without explicitly stating it, allowing jurors to infer the trust relationship. So if, for example, if the villain is a corporation, outline their duty to provide safe products and the trust that society places in them to do so. 2, the second part is the inciting event, creating the spark. This section introduces the event that disrupts the status quo and jeopardizes the trust relationship. It's the first significant change that sets a story in motion, and describe that inciting event in a detailed, moment by moment manner. Create a picture to immerse the jury in the scene. So if the case involves a product defect, vividly describe the moment when the defect caused harm. Paint a picture and emphasize the shift from one of trust to one of betrayal. 3, the central conflict or building tension. This section explores the external events and internal conflicts the villain faces. It highlights a struggle between maintaining the trust relationship and succumbing to the forces that led to the betrayal. Use a combination of scenes and summaries to depict the escalating tension and tug of war. So if, for example, the villain is a company executive, illustrate the internal struggle between prioritizing profit margins and ensuring product safety, leading up to the decision point. 4, the decision or the betrayal. This focuses on the critical moment when the villain decides to betray the trust relationship. Define the decision and show exactly how it violates a trust between the villain and your client or society, and depict it through a detailed scene or a concise summary. Paint a picture. So, for example, detail the executive's decision to ignore safety reports in favor of higher profits, demonstrating the breach of trust. 5, the impact of the decision. What are the consequences in the aftermath? Highlight the effects of the villain's decision on your client, their family and friends, and society. Consider including how the villain benefits from the betrayal. Describe the negative consequences of betrayal in your client or society and the benefits gained by the villain. So, for example, show the personal and societal impact of the defective product, such as the injury sustained by your client, emotional distress experienced, and broader societal implications. It illustrates how the executive or corporation profited from the decision. If you follow this structured approach, you can create a compelling narrative that will capture the jury's attention, evoke empathy, and clearly outline the breach of trust by the bad guy and its consequences on your client. And that framework will ensure that your story is coherent, persuasive, and memorable, strengthening your case. In the challenging arena of law where facts and evidence form the backbone of our cases. Storytelling is really the soul that breathes life into those facts. When you master effective storytelling techniques, you can transform your complicated case into a compelling narrative that will resonate with judges, juries, and clients alike. Because, see, stories engage, they enlighten, and they persuade in ways that raw data and facts cannot. And they create a lasting impact that can turn the tide in your favor. As you hone your storytelling skills, remember that every case has a story waiting to be told, one that highlights the human element, underscoring the stakes, and ultimately seeks justice. So embrace the power of storytelling in your practice. Watch it elevate your advocacy, enhance your connections, and lead to more successful outcomes. You know, I've seen lawyers get up at closing and just run through the facts, line them up, talk about complicated legal theories, and the jury doesn't connect. But I found that telling a story really, really does. And I would urge you to check with Keely Blanchard, check with some of the resources she has, and develop your ability to tell a story. Whatever you do, whether it's arguing a case to a jury, presenting a case to a judge, talking to an audience about some subject matter, building your practice by relating to clients, stories really sell. They sell you and they sell your side. So I encourage you to really look into refining the art of storytelling and see how it can support you to have a more successful practice, a more confident way to present your case in court. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any topics you would like me to discuss on future episodes, please email me at gary@garymiles.net. And I've shared this before, but I'm here to help and support you. If there's something going on in your practice that you would like some support with or is troubling you, please let me know. I'm here to help. Just drop me a message at gary@garymiles.net about anything, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. Thanks for joining me, and as always, please be well, be safe, and be free. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Free Lawyer Podcast. Wherever you are listening, if you enjoyed what I shared, please leave me a rating and review. I would appreciate hearing more about what you like best and what topics you might like me to cover in future episodes. If you are interested in experiencing a more fulfilling and a more successful life, please contact me at www.garymiles.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me so I can learn more about you, your challenges, and your dreams. I appreciate each and every one of you, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks to all of you for your support.